Just because our 5-year-old son, Leo, muttered a single curse at his mother's childhood friend, my wife, Victoria, threw him out into the blinding snowstorm. Leo shivered violently, clutching his thin pajamas, while Victoria stood wrapped in her thick down coat, a cruel smirk twisting her lips. Barely old enough to walk, and already daring to insult your Uncle Julian? Just like your worthless father. Mommy, Leo was wrong. Please, let Leo come inside, my son pleaded, his small voice trembling, bowing his head repeatedly against the icy ground. But Victoria slammed the door shut with brutal finality. You little beast. Kneel out there for 3 days. Maybe that will teach you a lesson. 3 days later, Victoria decided it was time to let our son come home. But she didn't know. She couldn't know that Leo's small body was already frozen solid, an ice sculpture of agony, his eyes wide open, staring sightlessly at the uncaring sky. A week into my business trip, a sudden tightness gripped my chest, making it hard to breathe. An inexplicable wave of panic seized my heart. It felt like a premonition, a chilling certainty that something was terribly wrong with Leo. I checked my call log, and my blood ran cold. Victoria was strict with Leo, so he was always incredibly attached to me, calling me every single day when I was away. But it had been 5 days. 5 silent days since his last call. This was deeply abnormal. A cold sweat broke out across my body, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip my phone. Trembling, I dialed his homeroom teacher, Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis, hello? Was Leo in school today? The middle-aged woman sounded puzzled. Mr. Hayes? I was actually about to call you. Leo hasn't been in school for almost 2 weeks now. He's in 4th grade this year. You know, you really can't afford to be so neglectful. I didn't hear the rest. I hung up, a primal scream building in my chest, and started running, blindly, desperately, towards home. My fingernails dug into my palms. Drawing blood I barely felt. The ominous feeling intensified, choking me. I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, that something catastrophic had happened to Leo. As I approached the front door, staggering from exhaustion and dread, I heard voices from inside. Victoria's voice, laced with a lazy, flirtatious tone, drifted out. That little brat, Leo, where the hell has he run off to? It's been over a week. Why hasn't he crawled back to apologize to you yet? Hearing her venomous words, a pain like a physical blow struck my heart. I bit my tongue hard, tasting blood, just to keep myself from collapsing. Then, a man's voice, soft and cloying. Vicky, darling, don't be upset with a child. He just said something harsh. I wasn't that angry, really. His tone shifted, adopting a veneer of false magnanimity. Leo's a good kid, just takes after his father. It's only natural he resents me a little. It was Julian. Victoria's white moonlight, the ghost of her past. Just the sound of his voice filled me with a bone-deep hatred. Back in college, he'd ruthlessly dumped Victoria, who loved him desperately, chasing after a wealthy heiress for her money. Betrayed and heartbroken, Victoria had spiraled. She locked herself in the bathroom, slit her wrists, and lay down in a tub of water to die. Seeing her cryptic, despairing post online just before, I'd felt a sickening lurch. Ignoring the rules, risking expulsion and the wrath of the dorm matron, I'd burst into the women's dormitory. The bathtub water was stained crimson. My hands shook as I fumbled to apply pressure, trying frantically to stop the bleeding. Falling for the wrong person isn't your fault. Victoria, I'd pleaded, my voice cracking. You have to live and make that bastard regret this for the rest of his life. But she'd pulled her hand away, her eyes vacant. There's no one left in this world who loves me. How can I possibly go on living? In that moment, the secret love I'd harbored for years surged forth. Victoria, I love you. I truly love you. I stammered, overwhelmed. I'll take responsibility for you. Even if it's just for my sake, please live. I'm begging you. I'll marry you. It was the closest I'd ever been to the woman I adored, and my words tumbled out in a chaotic, heartfelt torrent. I don't remember everything I said that day, pouring out years of suppressed emotion. But finally, wiping away her tears, Victoria whispered that she was willing to believe in love one more time. We fell into a whirlwind romance, quickly progressing to engagement and marriage. On our wedding night, Victoria got up in the middle of the night. Stirred by the movement, I woke to see her hunched over, searching for something in the dark. The next morning, I noticed a new ring on her finger, worn right next to our wedding band. When I asked who gave it to her, she simply said, a friend. It wasn't until Julian reappeared in our lives, wearing an identical ring on his own hand, that the crushing truth slammed into me. He was the friend. It's true what they say, the unattainable is always the most desired. My carefully constructed happiness shattered, leaving only a flood of bitter sorrow. Now, standing outside the door, Victoria's voice, shrill with anger, pierced the air again. Like father, like son. Leo is just like his father, Samuel, both ungrateful bastards. I heard Julian make a small, sympathetic noise, but I could imagine the hidden smirk on his face. You lost a leg saving Samuel back then. Victoria spat, her voice dripping poison, twisting the facts into a grotesque parody. And does he show any gratitude? No. He just picks fights with you constantly because of me. Her voice grew even harsher, colder. Leo is a worthless spawn too. If I'd known he'd grow up to insult you, I should have smothered him the moment he was born. That incident, the supposed leg injury, was the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. I'd been suddenly kidnapped. And my rescuer? It was Julian. When I first saw him, relief washed over me, mingled with guilt for my past jealousy. But the next second, he gave a cold smirk and a subtle hand signal. The kidnappers descended on me, beating me mercilessly. 2 of my teeth were knocked out. I felt ribs crack, tasted blood pooling in my mouth. Internal bleeding started. Before they could finish me off, Victoria arrived. I expected comfort, tears, concern. Instead, she delivered a vicious kick straight to my stomach. The impact forced a choked gasp and another mouthful of blood from my lips. Useless waste, she shrieked, her face contorted with rage. Getting yourself kidnapped wasn't enough? You had to drag Julian into it too. Her voice rose to a hysterical pitch. Your pathetic life is worthless. But Julian is a professional mountaineer. He lost his leg because of you. Then, like flipping a switch, her expression transformed. She turned to Julian, her face softening into one of profound pity and tenderness, her voice becoming gentle, almost reverent. Because of this trash, you've suffered so much. From now on, I'll spend the rest of my life compensating you, loving you. Through a haze of pain, I forced my head up. I saw Julian looking down at me, a triumphant, mocking smile playing on his lips. It was not the expression of a man who had genuinely lost a limb. During my long, painful recovery in the hospital, I learned the truth from friends. Julian had meticulously staged their reunion. He'd tearfully claimed he'd only left Victoria years ago because I had manipulated him. He spun a tale of how I'd told him Victoria no longer loved him and that he should leave her alone. He claimed he'd chosen the heiress in a fit of pique, but his heart had always belonged to Victoria. Consumed by regret over his impulsive decision. Now, he claimed, he saw clearly and wanted nothing more than to rekindle their old flame. It was a lie so laughably transparent, a stray dog wouldn't have believed it. But Victoria did, wholeheartedly. From the moment Julian re-entered her life, her warmth towards me vanished, replaced by indifference and growing contempt. After I was discharged, my body was broken. I couldn't travel for work nearly as often. My career stalled. Seeing my weakened state, Victoria became even more brazen in her affair with Julian. Staying out all night became commonplace. The sight of fresh love bites and angry red marks blooming on her neck and collarbone whenever she bothered to come home was a constant, agonizing torture. I wanted to claw my eyes out. I could never understand how Julian had deceived her so completely. Or perhaps it wasn't deception. Perhaps, for Victoria, Julian was simply someone she chose to trust unconditionally, while I was destined to be nothing more than collateral damage in their twisted love story. The pain was a constant, physical ache in my chest. But what hurt even more, what truly ripped my soul apart, was Leo's innocence in all this. She had no right, to vent her twisted frustrations on our son. From inside, I heard the faint, hesitant voice of the housekeeper. Madam, I think Leo has learned his lesson. Perhaps you could let him come back now. Victoria's anger flared even hotter. Leo learned to curse Julian at such a young age. That kind of vile behavior, worse than an animal. He deserves to die outside. A soft chuckle, probably Julian's. Vicky, don't be angry. You'll get wrinkles. Oh, well then, hubby's kisses will smooth them out. With her lover beside her, Victoria shed all restraint. The rustling sound of clothes being removed followed. Unsurprisingly, they were about to put on a live show. Rage boiled within me, the veins in my temples throbbing. I couldn't stand it anymore. I threw my weight against the door, slamming it open. Bang! My eyes landed on the large bed. The two of them, naked, entwined, poised for intimacy. Seeing me, Victoria's face instantly clouded over with fury. Julian adopted his signature look of fragile, wronged innocence. The sight of the bruises and marks covering her body felt like a brand searing my eyes. I quickly looked away, grinding my back teeth together so hard they creaked. Even though I knew our love was long dead, The raw evidence still sent a fresh wave of agony through me. It took several deep, ragged breaths before I could control my voice. Victoria, where's Leo? At the mention of our son's name, a flicker of unease crossed her stormy face. Her voice lacked its earlier venomous conviction. I sent Leo away with someone to have fun. He'll be back in a few days. Stop being so nosy. She spat the words out. And besides, didn't you say you had no feelings left for me? If there's nothing else, get out. And don't come back. We'd had a massive fight before this trip. Years of resentment had finally boiled over. Leo had pneumonia yesterday. He could have died if he didn't get to the hospital. How could you leave him for a dog? I had roared, seeing our frail son lying weakly in his bed. My anger only fueled hers. Children have strong immune systems. He would have toughed it out. Julian's dog was shedding badly. It would have been miserable if it didn't go to the vet. She had screamed back. He's just our child. How can he compare to Julian's dog? That dog is a living creature. Her words had nearly given me a heart attack. My son, the boy I cherished more than anything, treated as less important than her lover's pet? From that day on, we were like strangers living under the same roof. Our relationship froze over completely. It had been 3 months since I'd last set foot in this house. Seeing the fury on my face now, Julian shrank closer to Victoria, feigning fear. Ignoring his pathetic act, I demanded coldly, Victoria, I'm asking you again. Where is my son? My sharp tone ignited her temper again, erasing any trace of her earlier unease. I told you he went out to play. Are you deaf? My gut screamed that she was lying. Leo hasn't called me in days. Something might have happened to him. I need to video call him right now. Tell your people to answer. I pulled out my phone, my patience worn thin. Samuel, that's not fair of you. Julian interjected, his eyes welling up, his voice trembling with fake emotion. A mother's bond is strong. Vicky loves Leo so much, she'd never put him in harm's way. Saying things like that will only hurt her. I gasped for air, fighting the urge to smash his deceptively angelic face. You shut your mouth. Instead of spewing garbage here, why don't you go get that old injury of yours checked out? Wouldn't want you dropping dead unexpectedly. Hitting that nerve shut him up instantly. His face drained of color. Seeing her precious, white moonlight insulted, Victoria trembled with rage, spittle, flying as she screamed at me. Samuel, let me tell you, a single strand of Julian's hair is worth more than you and your damn dog of a son combined. You'd curse your own son just to argue with me. Samuel, with a father like you, it's no wonder the boy might die out there. How could a mother say such things about her child? A choked sob mixed with blood rose in my throat. Blinded by rage, I shoved her hard. Caught off guard, she stumbled back, the back of her head cracking against the wall. She reached up, and her hand came away covered in blood. Victoria, are you okay? My anger instantly morphed into horrified guilt. Despite everything, she was still the woman I had once loved. I reached out to help her, but in the next second, she launched herself at me, grabbing handfuls of my hair. Her face was flushed crimson, her breathing ragged. She had entered full berserker mode. Samuel, you've finally done it. You've really pissed me off. Now I'll show you the price of provoking me. With that, she raised her hand and began slapping me across the face, hard, relentlessly. Slap, 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 slap. Over and over, maybe a dozen times or more. My ears rang violently. A thick spurt of blood erupted from my mouth, and the world tilted, darkness closing in as I collapsed to the floor. Searching my soul, where did I ever go wrong with Victoria? Who ran out without a coat in freezing weather just because she craved a hot milk tea before the shop closed? Who climbed 60 flights of stairs in blistering 40 degrees Celsius heat, back and forth, just to deliver iced fruit to a client so I could save enough to buy her that diamond ring? Who, despite never drinking, forced down alcohol at business dinners until my stomach bled, just to secure deals for her projects? It was me, Samuel. And what did it get me? She was beating me senseless, with all her strength, for her lover. Rage and crushing grief filled my chest as consciousness faded. The last thing I heard was Julian's voice, dripping with false concern. Vicky, darling, your hand is all swollen. Did it hurt? He stepped callously over my prone body to fetch an ice pack for her. Humph, you're still the considerate one. Victoria sniffed dismissively, wiping her hand with disgust. Slapping trash like Samuel, just dirties. My hands. Her face, when she turned back to Julian, softened instantly, the fury replaced by tender affection, a complete transformation. Get him to a hospital. I don't want to see him again. Shortly after I was taken away, Victoria's phone rang. It was the police department. Ms. Victoria Chun, we received a report. Your son's body was found under a bridge. Before the officer could continue, Victoria cut him off sharply, her voice laced with fury. Leo certainly has nerve. Only 10 years old and already conspiring with people to impersonate police officers, making fake calls to me, just like his worthless father. If he wants to act tough, let him stay outside forever. Don't ever come back here to disgust me. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then the officer's tone turned cold. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. This is your biological son we're talking about. Don't you care at all? People have hearts, Miss Chun. If I were you, regardless of whether it was true or false, I would at least go and see for myself. Victoria hesitated, her hand gripping the phone tightly, trembling slightly. When she spoke again, her voice was more controlled. Then, can you prove you're really the police? Seeing her waver, Julian's eyes darted around. He quickly resumed his role as the magnanimous partner. Vicky, don't be upset. Children are inherently good. I'm sure Leo didn't intentionally get someone to impersonate the police just to trick you. Besides, he's young, immature. Even though he insulted me back then, it's understandable, really. Don't hold it against him. Let's just bring him home quickly. The reminder of Leo insulting her precious Julian reignited Victoria's anger. All rationality evaporated. You're just too kind-hearted. Julian, you tolerate everything. Leo might only be 10, but he's already learned to lie and deceive. A little monster like that. I wouldn't even glance his way if he died outside. With that, she slammed down the phone. Since Leo shows no remorse whatsoever, let him rot outside for another month. When he finally understands his mistake and is willing to kneel and apologize to Julian, then he'll be allowed back home. Meanwhile, I lay in a hospital bed, trapped in a nightmare. I saw Leo, but he was covered in wounds, his small body encased in ice. Daddy, Leo hurts so cold. They poked my eyes with needles, cut my tendons with a knife, forced me to beg for money. Daddy, save me. His pleas were knives twisting in my heart. But as I reached out, he vanished. I snapped awake, drenched in sweat, lying in the sterile hospital room. A terror unlike anything I'd ever known washed over me. Leo was really gone. Ignoring the doctor's protests, I leaped out of bed. I had to find Leo. Back at the villa, Victoria had completely dismissed her dead son, lost in her world with Julian. My designer clothes, expensive bags, luxury watches, Julian was using them all as his own. Seeking cheap thrills, he wore my clothes while lounging in my bed, making love to my wife. If we're going for thrills, might as well go all the way, he probably purred. But they had no idea. I had run barefoot from the hospital, searching frantically for my son, going days without sleep, driven by a desperate, gnawing fear. Once they'd had their fill of pleasure, Victoria decided it was time to fully commit to the white moonlight she could never attain in her youth. Julian, let's get married. Next month. I've already chosen the location. The rooftop terrace of our downtown villa. The night sky there is truly beautiful. Our villa, the one Victoria and I had worked ourselves to the bone to build. Under that same starry sky, we had once exchanged rings made from soda can tabs, vowing to be each other's forever. Later, when we finally had money, I knelt on that same terrace, under those same stars, and slipped a diamond ring onto her finger. I swore I would love her for a lifetime. But time changes everything. People change. After Julian reappeared, I watched helplessly as Victoria's focus shifted entirely away from me and Leo, centering solely on him. Now, she squandered my money on him, abused my son for him. And Julian accepted it all, reveled in it, without a shred of guilt. Vicky, you're too good to me, he murmured. Knowing how much you love me, I'm not even angry with Leo anymore. When he comes back, make sure you comfort him. After all, he's only 10, and he's been out there for so long. His feigned kindness only fueled Victoria's adoration. She glowed with happiness. 3 days later was Julian's birthday. To lavish affection on her seemingly fragile childhood love, Victoria threw money around like confetti. A truly suicidal level of spending. Julian liked astronomy. Victoria bought an exclusive, decommissioned asteroid and had it named after him. Julian liked rock music. She spent a fortune hiring a hugely popular rock band for a private 2-hour concert, just for him. She even personally contacted Julian's favorite female pop star, convincing her to cancel a public performance to give him a private solo show. On Julian's birthday, the entire city was showered with roses falling from the sky. Victoria, stunning in an evening gown, stood hand in hand with the birthday boy on the rooftop of the tallest, most prestigious tower downtown. Julian, she declared, this romance is for you alone. Under the starlit sky, Victoria tenderly lifted Julian's hand and pressed it to her lips. For your new year, I wish you health, happiness, and joy. The city below buzzed with excitement. My God, CEO Chen isn't just beautiful and successful, she's so devoted. I'd die happy with a wife like that. Sob, is this what rich people's love looks like? I wish I could have a girlfriend like Victoria in my next life. Julian, you lucky bastard. No one knew they were celebrating with my blood, sweat, and tears. Victoria now controlled the largest real estate portfolio in the city. But it was my relentless hard work, my sacrifices that had built that empire step by agonizing step. I remembered collapsing from exhaustion, ending up hospitalized. Victoria had wept then, clinging to my hand, swearing she would never betray me. But what did she do later? It started with staying out late, then blatant flirting on social media, and finally, brazenly inviting Julian to live in the villa we had bought together. Time and again, she chose him, broke my heart, trampled on my love. And after we married, I'd given her half the company's shares, making her a wealthy partner without her having to lift a finger. Just for Julian's extravagant birthday party, she had blown through nearly half the savings I had painstakingly accumulated over the years. But then again, I was the one who'd earned it through grueling work. She'd never known hardship, so why would she value it? And my poor Leo. While they lived in dazzling splendor, his small body lay sealed in a cold drawer in the police morgue. His tendons had been severed, his internal organs stolen. He looked like a broken doll. Even the most hardened forensic pathologist in the city had to turn away, unable to bear the sight. But their time was coming. The reckoning for this monstrous pair was near. After another month of decadent living with Julian, Victoria was finally ready to marry her childhood sweetheart. On the wedding day, the sky above the city blazed with spectacular fireworks. They exploded continuously, from dawn till dusk, without a moment's pause. Onlookers stared upwards in amazement. Wow, fireworks all day long. They must be incredibly rich. Look, those aren't ordinary fireworks. They're forming patterns and words. Following pointing fingers, the crowd watched as the fireworks shifted, rearranged, and burst simultaneously, forming glowing letters against the darkening sky. Julian, Victoria loves you forever. As those words faded, countless heart shapes, large and small, bloomed beside them. Whoa, Victoria is so romantic. Is this what rich people's love is like? I'm so jealous. The crowd murmured with envy and admiration. After the fireworks finale, a hauntingly beautiful, ancient-sounding melody began to play. Those with sharp ears recognized it instantly. Isn't that the latest piece by the top composer, Jax? I heard even a short snippet costs tens of thousands. Victoria is so generous. She really treats Julian so well. High above on the terrace, Victoria could still hear the whispers of praise from below. She wore a breathtaking custom-made wedding gown, dripping with jewels. Julian stood beside her in a top-tier tuxedo. They looked, to the world, like a perfectly matched couple. The terrace glittered with lights, the floor covered by a red carpet sprinkled with diamond dust. Colorful spotlights danced overhead. But the brighter their celebration, the more tragic Leo's fate seemed. His body, exposed to the elements for too long before being found, had begun to decompose, infested with maggots. It now needed to be preserved in formaldehyde just to maintain a semblance of human form. Finally, Victoria beamed, raising Julian's hand. I, Victoria Chun, solemnly declare to you all today, her voice rang out, filled with performative emotion. I will love Julian for all eternity, share with him my glory and my wealth, unconditionally bear his sorrows and pains. All that I have is his. He is my everything. Hearing such profound vows, many onlookers, especially those yet unmarried, were moved to tears. But before they could fully celebrate this supposedly great love, the large screen set up for the wedding suddenly flickered to life, displaying a video. Victoria frowned, completely bewildered. This wasn't part of her plan. The video showed a man lying in bed, intimately embracing a young, beautiful woman, a stranger. Baby, just bear with it for a little bit. Hearing the familiar voice, Victoria's eyes widened in shock. Julian lunged towards the screen, pounding on it frantically. No, no. But the video continued playing mercilessly. The man turned, revealing his face clearly. It was, undeniably, the groom of this very wedding, Julian. Thought this was a sweet romance. Turns out the groom is rotten. Gross. Scumbag, go die? My eyes feel violated. The crowd, moments before filled with admiration, erupted in fury. Bouquets were dropped. Instead, garbage rained down on Julian. What? What is going on? Victoria gasped, utterly horrified. She covered her face, her makeup smudging and flaking off, destroying her carefully crafted image of elegant composure. Julian, Julian, say something. You wouldn't betray me, right? This video must be fake. Right. Julian stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Seeing the guilt and panic in his eyes, Victoria understood everything. Her legs gave way, and she crumpled to the ground. Why? Why did even you have to betray me? She whispered, heartbroken. Just then, a large group of people burst onto the wedding terrace. It's them. Those two dogs. They killed Leo. I was at the forefront, tears streaming down my face, blurring my vision. Seeing Leo's autopsy photos, learning the full, horrifying details of his final days, had shattered the last vestiges of my sanity. I once believed, naively, that even the cruelest beast wouldn't devour its own young. I thought Victoria, however strict, would never truly harm Leo to this extent. I was wrong. There is no venom like that of a woman scorned, or perhaps a woman obsessed. My son, whom I cherished above all else, had been tortured and discarded by her. After leaving the hospital, I had used every connection, every resource I had, to uncover the truth behind Leo's disappearance. Through threats and bribes, I finally got the truth from a terrified servant at the villa. That day, Julian had entered Leo's room with a plate of fruit, smiling, offering to feed him. But as Leo took a bite, Julian suddenly yanked his hair violently. Leo screamed in pain, but Julian didn't let go. You ruined Mommy and Daddy's relationship. You hit me. I hate you. I hate you. Leo had cried out in pain and anger. Victoria walked in at that exact moment, hearing only Leo's final words. Julian immediately collapsed onto the floor dramatically, fruit scattering around him. Vicky, I didn't mean to. He sobbed pitifully. I saw Leo working so hard on his homework. I just wanted to bring him some fruit. I didn't expect him to react like this. He buried his face in his hands, weeping. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have interfered in your relationship. I'll leave tonight. Vicky, maybe we'll meet again in the next life. The thought of her long-lost, white moonlight disappearing again was unbearable for Victoria. She rushed to embrace him. Julian, you've done nothing wrong, except be too kind. Her fury then turned on our son. The father is responsible for the son's mistakes. Leo is such a little monster because his father spoils him rotten. Her voice hardened. Today, I'll teach Samuel's son a lesson he won't forget. What followed was the greatest tragedy of Leo's short life. Beaten and kicked by his enraged mother, he was then thrown out into the blizzard. That day, Leo knelt in the snow, forehead bleeding from K-N-G repeatedly on the frozen ground. Mommy, I'm sorry. I really won't do it again. He cried until his voice was hoarse, but Victoria remained unmoved, watching him from the doorway, wrapped in her warm coat, her voice dripping. With contempt. Still have the strength to shout? Looks like you have plenty of energy. Stay out there for a few days and reflect properly. I truly regret giving birth to a little beast like you. With a final slam of the door, she left my son alone in the howling wind and snow, his small face turning blue with cold. Now, she stood here, resplendent in her wedding finery, while Leo lay dismembered and decomposing. I wanted to flay her, devour her flesh. Give me back my son. Seeing me, the unexpected intruder, Victoria's shock morphed back into anger. But Julian's betrayal had clearly shaken her. Her voice lacked its usual force. Samuel, are you here to cause trouble? If you have a problem with me, say it directly. Don't use Leo as an excuse. Before she could continue, I hurled a sheaf of papers directly at her face. The sharp corner cut her cheek, drawing blood. Open your damn eyes and see what this is. I roared, my own eyes bloodshot with grief and fury. Victoria started to retort furiously, but froze when her eyes fell upon the words printed boldly on the top page. Autopsy report. Deceased. Leo Hayes. This is impossible. It's fake. You forged this just to hurt me. The carefully constructed facade crumbled. She clawed frantically at her hair, pulling out strands, utterly undone. I only made Leo reflect outside for a few days. How could he die like this? So horribly. I wanted to strangle her. Fine. Then let everyone hear exactly what you did. My voice thundered across the terrace. My son, Leo, was only 10 years old. He was such a sweet, loving boy. And you, for the sake of your precious, white moonlight, beat him savagely and threw him out of the house. The guests gasped, murmuring in shock. They couldn't believe that the beautiful, successful Victoria Chun could be capable of such monstrous cruelty towards her own child. It was snowing heavily that day. I continued, my voice cracking with anguish. You didn't even give him a warm coat. You kicked him out into the snowdrift and told him to stay out there for 3 days. Leo was terrified of the cold. He bowed his head until it bled, begging you, telling you he was sorry, that he wouldn't do it again. And you showed him no mercy. Many in the crowd were parents themselves. Hearing this, raw fury erupted. That bitch is evil. She doesn't deserve to be a mother. How can someone like her be a leader in the city's real estate? She should just die. How could she do that to Leo? Realizing the true horror of her actions, Victoria's legs trembled violently. She dug her nails into her palms so hard they bled, as if the pain could somehow wake her from this nightmare. No, 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 she stammered. You can't say that about me. I loved Leo. My methods were just wrong. I only wanted to punish him. I never meant to kill him. Seeing her broken state brought me no satisfaction. The suffering she endured now was less than a millionth of what Leo had experienced. After you threw him out, Leo was cold and starving. He couldn't even find shelter from the snow. Recalling the subsequent events brought the metallic taste of blood to my mouth again. And then, some heartless monster, some scum of the earth, lured him away with 2 pieces of bread. He forced Leo to beg on the streets. When Leo refused, he used every cruel method imaginable. He tortured him, crippled him. Each word was agony, a slow, spiritual torture for myself as much as for her. Finally, when Leo was dying, useless for begging, the monster dumped his broken body by the roadside, left him there to freeze solid, like a discarded piece of ice. My voice choked. My poor son, only 10 years old, and I couldn't continue. A fresh wave of grief overwhelmed me, and I coughed, spitting out a mouthful of blood. People rushed to support me, but I waved them away. Please, play the surveillance footage from that day. Moments later, the large wedding screen displayed grainy footage. Leo, small and thin, huddled miserably in the snow by our front door, shivering uncontrollably. Mommy, I'm really sorry. I won't do it again. He whispered, tears streaming down his face, freezing into icy tracks on his cheeks. Inside, Victoria stood watching, hurling abuse. Even a dog would wag its tail at me. What use are you? You're worse than an animal. Dare to curse your Uncle Julian? I ought to tear that mouth off your face. When she tired of yelling, she slammed the door shut with finality. Leo knelt in the snow for a long time. Realizing his mother wouldn't open the door, he wiped his tears and slowly, painfully, stumbled away. He walked through the snow for what seemed like forever before collapsing, exhausted. Hey, a rough voice. Kid, I got food here. A menacing-looking man waved at him. I had warned Leo countless times about strangers, drilled safety rules into him. But he was so desperately hungry, so cold, so abandoned. He couldn't resist. He walked towards the man, his eyes wide with hope. The man grinned maliciously, pulling a sack from behind his back. The camera zoomed slightly. Everyone watching could clearly see the contents. An axe, steel needles, a branding iron. Then, Leo followed him, disappearing out of the camera's view. The footage ended. Everyone knew the final, brutal outcome. Are you all wondering? My voice was a raw whisper. Why? Why was it my Leo, who so coincidentally was lured away like that? My fingernails were buried deep in my palms, the flesh torn and bleeding. It's because that man was hired by Julian. Julian's face turned deathly white. He scrambled to defend himself. No, that's a lie. Samuel is lying. Please believe me. Why would I harm a child like Leo? What shameless scum. Cornered, yet still denying. I gave a cold, humorless laugh and projected the evidence gathered by the police onto the screen. It showed a financial transaction record. The payer and payee? Facial recognition confirmed them as Julian and the menacing man from the surveillance video. It has the official police seal. Don't worry, it can't be forged. I slammed the door shut on Julian's last desperate attempt at denial. The truth was undeniable. The entire sequence of events was laid bare. A stunned silence fell over the crowd. They stared in disbelief at the bride and groom, horrified by the ugliness hidden beneath the glamorous facade. What a pair, beautiful on the outside, rotten to the core. Fists clenched, eyes turned red with fury. Get them. Kill those 2 animals. Leo, watch this. We'll get revenge for you. A wave of people surged forward, ready to tear them apart. In the chaos, Julian shoved Victoria hard, using her as a human shield while he made his escape. Pushed into the middle of the angry mob, Victoria became the sole target of their fury. Within moments, her expensive wedding dress was ripped to shreds. Her pale skin was covered in bruises and bloody scratches. Her eyes swelled shut, weeping thin trickles of blood. Leo, she mumbled brokenly. I'm sorry. Mommy was wrong. Blood mixed with tears streamed down her battered face. But seeing her pathetic state only reminded me of Leo's far greater suffering. He had endured unimaginable pain, abandoned in a cold, dark underpass, only to die young and alone. All because his mother didn't love him. Her belated remorse was cheaper than dirt. What meaning could her regret possibly hold now? By the time the crowd's fury subsided, Victoria was barely breathing. Gritting my teeth until my jaw ached, I ordered my men to pursue Julian, then walked slowly towards Victoria's broken form. "Do you have any last words?" My voice was devoid of any warmth, any emotion. Victoria's lips moved, trying to form words. I noticed then that several of her teeth had been knocked out. Leo, Mommy, knows she was wrong. After Julian came back, Mommy couldn't focus on you or Daddy. She spoke in broken gasps, blood bubbling at her lips. Mommy was never good to you. In the end, I killed you with my own hands. I'm so sorry. If there's the next life, Mommy will be your servant, make it up to you. Her voice faded, her breathing stopped. After Victoria died, I had her body taken away. Over the years, as my feelings for her cooled, I had gradually withdrawn from some of our shared businesses. The real estate empire was almost entirely under her control. To maximize profits, she had engaged in numerous shady, borderline illegal activities. With her death and the investigation spurred by Leo's murder, these crimes would slowly be unearthed by the police, brought blinking into the light. She would die, ultimately, burdened by her sins. Meanwhile, my men reported they had captured Julian. He was carrying his passport and a large sum of money, funds he had siphoned from Victoria over the years, planning to flee the country and disappear. He was too slow. My men suggested turning him over to the police. I refused. They understood immediately, pleading with me not to do anything foolish. Don't do anything foolish. How absurd those words sounded. Since seeing Leo's ravaged body, my insides felt shredded, the pain constant suffocation. My parents were gone. My wife betrayed me. My son was brutally murdered. What else did I have left to lose? My only remaining purpose was vengeance for Leo. When Julian was brought before me, I laid out the tools I had prepared. I made him experience, piece by agonizing piece, every torment Leo had suffered. Blood splattered everywhere, but my hand remained steady. My heart felt nothing but cold, hard resolve. Leo, abandoned by his mother, tortured by a monster. How terrified, how helpless must he have been? Only Julian's pain could begin to soothe the gaping wound in my own soul. When he was near death, barely recognizable as human, I had him tied to the back of a car and dragged him miles out into the deserted countryside. When we stopped, his body was a mangled mess of torn flesh and shattered bone. But I had him hooked up to an IV drip, forcing glucose into his veins, keeping him conscious. Leo had died so horribly, Julian wouldn't get off easy. I grabbed his hair, dragged him to a freshly dug grave, and forced him to his knees. With his last remaining strength, Julian struggled, refusing to kneel before the grave of the child he had murdered. His blood dripped onto the simple headstone. Enraged, I grabbed a steel pipe and brought it down hard on his kneecaps. All the grief, rage, and pain I had suppressed exploded forth. I didn't care that you slept with Victoria, but why the fuck did you have to hurt my son? Why? I screamed, tears streaming down my face, sobbing uncontrollably, on the verge of collapsing myself. Leo was so sweet, so innocent. How could you do that to him? Are you even human? I smashed his knees again and again, until they were pulp, sinking into the soft earth. Only then did Julian stop moving. When his blood had finally drained away, pooling around his shattered legs, I raised the steel pipe one last time and brought it down on the back of his skull, shattering it. Sending Julian to hell brought a strange sense of release, a deep, shuddering exhalation. I turned to face my son's grave. A profound exhaustion settled over me, but for the first time in weeks, a faint, weary smile touched my lips. "Son," I whispered, the sound barely audible in the desolate quiet. "Daddy's coming to be with you now." With that, I lowered my head and ran, full force, towards the simple stone marker. I wasn't a good father. If I had been there more, maybe this tragedy wouldn't have happened. Leo, my dearest son, in the next life, may you find a truly happy home. May all your sorrows vanish, and all your wishes come true. End.